Hi all. Right, this is Empire of the Sun. Um, a game I really would love to get into. I realise it's really a two-player game, and all the stuff that I've read and all the videos that I've watched, you can see that it'd be a great two-player game. But unfortunately, I don't really do two-player games. um, I'm a bit wary to play to try and attempt to play anybody with a game like this because they just get fed up of me scratching my head and wondering what I was going to do next. The game would take forever. Whatever. I know you can do it. I see you can do it. Play by email and that. And I suppose that's something I could consider, but I also like having the physical components. Obviously, the vassal engine for this game is has great benefits because of your zone of influences. I think now, I'm just a beginner at this game. I know I've had it for a while, and I set it up before, and I try to play it a bit, and because there is a bot system, and it's not for the faint-hearted. It's similar to coin bot systems, and it's maybe even more involved than them. Also, it does leave you in places that have you making decisions for yourself once you decide, and it kind of scares me. It's not really my thing, but I think this is a fabulous looking game, and it looks like it deserves at least me trying with it. Um, yeah, going back to the Vassal engine, the air zones of influence on the Vassal engine show up. When you're playing it on Vassal. So it really helps you to see where the gaps are and what you can and can't do. Whereas obviously with this, it doesn't, because the air, just looking at, there's an air unit in there. Um, this air unit, it exerts its zone of influence 2 hexes out, right round about it, So it shows up great on the Vassal module when you use that. I think that's obviously it's always a great benefit to using that. But Vassal and all that's great, but I've tried using it as well, and I don't know. I just feel like the whole, I don't know. For me, board games are about the physical components. I think, but I can see the benefits, and I understand people using it. It's just not really for me. But I think if I did get into this game, it would be something I would consider using in the future. Sorry, I'm coughing. I've still got this cough. It's maybe calming down a little bit. Well, I'm not so sure. Anyway, well, some of you might just be coming to this. I've done some previous videos, solitaire games. Um, uh, Mr. John Butterfield stuff, Enemy Action Ardennes and DD at Omaha Beach up to now, and I hope to do more of his stuff. But they're long videos. I go on a bit, and which makes them longer. And this is probably beyond me. This is probably far too much for me. This game, I think, but I just think there's something about it. It looks fascinating kind of game. So anyway, right, what are we here to do? Well, I'm not going to play both sides and all that because I don't like that. I realise that, so I'm going to try and play with the bots. And what I thought I could do in this video, I've ran through myself the example of play. The Erasmus is the bot's name, by the way. Erasmus offensive example of play, and it's quite detailed and does take a bit of time to go through. It took me quite a bit of time to go through because I wanted to get everything right and understand it, not just do what was saying in the example, but understand what it was doing. And there's quite a few bits I found myself scratching my head, wondering like, how has that happened? And then eventually got it. There was one bit I got stumped at and had to look up on BGG and found out that that it was an error, which I was relieved about because I understood then. There was also one other bit that I had to go and ask a question, and I got a reply, but it didn't quite satisfy what I was asking. So hopefully, if I put this together and then we can ask that question, I just carried on as the example said. It was just the card that it selected. I couldn't quite understand why it picked that card over another card. Anyway, and I'm sure it's there somewhere. I think it was about it being a military event rather than not a military event. I think it was something to do with that. It was the next card in the order of the cards. I know that maybe means nothing, but anyway, I was looking for more video stuff on the bots to understand them, and some kind of playthrough with the bot. The designer Mark Herman did do a video himself showing you how some of the things worked with the bots. I just feel it'd be nice to if there's something else out there, and hopefully, if I was myself wanting to look through the bots, I'd like to look through the how it's read in the book and maybe watch a video like this. So it's for me to learn as well, and I have went through it all, but I just thought it'd be good to go through it again, and why not record it? So that's what I'm going to do. And well, we'll see if it's worth viewing to you. We'll see. Okay, so the setup is for the 1942 start, which is the general start that you make, which is turn 2, isn't it? I think I did have it in the turn 1 boats, but yeah, it's turn 2, because 1941 December 41 is turn 1, and that's when the Japanese attack Pearl Harbor up here. Now you can start playing it from that, but it's I think when I first done it, I was like, oh my god, what's going on here? And it doesn't really give you anything with that. I mean, the example of play starts from the second turn 42, with the setup of that. So, yeah, because the 1941 start, okay, you attack Pearl Harbor, and it's quite good to have a look at how it worked, but then you end up with this 2 offensives that are like, one of them's like 20 odd activations of units, and it just ending up in a situation to what we've got just now, whereas the Japanese have took a couple of places in the Philippines, and and by the way, I'm not going to get these names right. Some of them I might just skip altogether and just point at it, because I'm going to butcher. I mean, I'll give some of them a bash, but there's some that are like, yeah, right. And then they've also got a couple of units in Malaya, and then up just south of Burma. I'm not even sure of all the areas. This is the Dutch East Indies, isn't it? Malaya, Borneo, Celebes. That's my guess at that one. New Guinea. So they've not got down to. Oh, actually, they have. They've got. They've taken. As this Rabaul, yeah, Rabaul. Now I've put. They're a bit fiddly. I wish they were the bigger style counters. So this is a Japanese control marker. So I put them in there. I understand if you watch people playing it, they probably don't. They just understand that they are now in control. But officially, they don't control this hex at the very start of the game. And of course, we've carried out turn 1. It's just been sort of set up as this is turn 2. But initially in turn 1, they don't control Rabaul, and this is one of the activations that they make to take it. At least I think all this is right. So I've put the wee counters there just to try and keep me right. Like I say, I wish they were the bigger ones, because if you've got a naval unit, it kind of just, but we can make it work. And it doesn't mean you're going to have the counters scattered about all over the place and whatever. Okay, so so that's the setup. So the Japanese have took a few places. They took Hong Kong as well, which was originally controlled by the Allies, and yeah. Okay, so and then everything else is set up The US political will starts at 8. Well, let's see. I did have that in the rule book, didn't I? There's a couple of adjustments to set up turn 2. It's kind of fiddly because the counters all start in different places. I found somebody's put a file in BGG that tells you where the hexes are, or you can look in the rulebook. It tells you where the adjusted hexes are, but it doesn't tell you about the normal hexes. So I actually found out that printout to be kind of useful. Although the way the guy's done it with some of the reduction units, he's not showing the reduced unit on the side. That was confusing me a little bit, but it is still, once you understand it, it does work better for me. Okay, so yeah, there's like a few units that are eliminated because they get taken out in the first turn. So it tells you about them, and then some adjustments. Obviously, the Japanese have made some moves. What else was I looking for? Yeah, markers. And I do also have it set up to start with the reinforcements for turn 2. So there was 3 Japanese reinforcements. You get the Yamato and hex 3407, which is here. Yeah, that's where the combined fleet is. So it goes in there, along with the 5th Air Division. It's a naval air division unit that's in there as well. And then the 28th reduced army division. You know what, I'm saying divisions and corps, I'll get all that wrong. Okay, so you'll just need to understand all that stuff yourself. I don't know what, you know what, I could probably have a look, because it's got 4 X's, that one. Maybe that is a corps, actually. Maybe on its full side it counts as an army or something. That's in 2110. So it's been placed into there. Was that Bangkok, is it? Yeah. So that's been reinforced into there. So that was the 3 turn 2 units for the Japanese. And then you've got all the delayed units and the delayed for the Allies. They're on this box here, so they start delayed. I thought things had a chance to go to war in Europe, don't they? The following Allied units are in the delay box. All game turn 2 reinforcements, except the British HQ SEAC, which is in Calcutta Hex 1805. Alright, so that one goes out as well. So yeah, that's up in Calcutta, up in India. And yeah, I know you roll a dice to see if certain units would go to go to Europe rather than the delayed box, and they get delayed even further. But whether they just decide that all them pass that and just move into the delay box or no, I don't know. So although these are turn 2 reinforcements, you don't actually see them until turn 3. So I never got on to moving them because I just done this example through. Yeah, and then it says Japanese have 4 resource hexes under control instead of 3. So they start with 4 instead of the 3 because they've taken, which one is it? I think it's here, isn't it? Miri. So they've taken that one. You can see the yellow outline. Or you could see it if I had the camera on it. Yeah. There. You see the yellow outline. All the hexes with yellow outlines are the resource hexes that the Japanese need to take. And then by them controlling them determines how many cards they get as the game goes on. I think that for the first few 3 or 4 turns, they get a full 7 cards. Because they're on the offensive But as the game goes on, they want to hold these hexes to make sure they continue drawing 7 cards, because I think they get 1 extra card per 2 that they control, or something like that. Yeah, you're not going to get the best rules from this, and it's mainly about following this example of play and seeing how the bot does things. That's what this is all about. So I don't fully understand the rules yet. The rule book is it's hard going. Yeah, it certainly is. But I'm not saying it looks good. The rule book looks good. But it's heavy. It is heavy. Right, so for resources, it says the Japanese have 11 divisions in China, which is a track way up the top there. Not quite sure what all that means, to be honest. The Allies have one amphibious shipping point to start with, which is shown here. And political will starts at +8 instead of 0, which is on this track here. And they get that right away. When Pearl Harbor's attacked, they get 8 political will. And they started that, and I think if it gets down to 0, the Allies could lose the game. Yeah, if it hits 0. The ASPs, the Japanese start with 7, so they get 7 every turn, although there is risks of them losing them. The Allies gain one of these every turn, assuming this war in Europe track doesn't get down, I think. But I maybe shouldn't go heavy into the rules because, like I say, I'm not the rules expert here. Okay, so yeah, so I think that's all the setup. So what I was going to try and do was, hang on. Yeah, so what I thought I'd attempt to do is just start and go through this and hopefully show you the flowcharts and see where these decisions are made. And like I say, numerous times I said, how have they come to that? And then looked at it 2 or 3 more times and then realised that, and then it clicks. But there was one, like I say, that I still didn't get. And then there's one that's a mistake, which I've marked in the book as well. So we're starting here. It's a 1942 campaign start, and Erasmus is playing the Japanese. And let's have the Allies use the emergency naval movement suggested in the introduction to start us off. So yeah, I was confused. I know about that, but I was like, right, where is that? Where does it tell you about that? So hang on. Yeah, and so I eventually found that this is on page 2, and it's just down from the introduction, really. We're talking about how to play. Sorry. How to play against Erasmus. So ways to play against Erasmus. All games against Erasmus are based on the January 42 game turn 2 campaign start. Set up using the start locations from the rulebook 17.2 and conduct any legal allied emergency naval move that you like. So this is where we're at. And it says if you're new to the game, the following are good to start with. So I just went with that because I'm new to the game. USDD Asia to Batavia. USC Asia, and you'll see that's in square brackets or whatever they're called, brackets. That means it's reduced. So anytime you see that, it means it's reduced. To Biak, Dutch CL to Sorabaja, Australian CA Kent to Gilly Gilly, and British CA Exeter to Dhaka. So we'll go and make the moves first. So the first one was the USDD Asia. Now, again, I don't know my ships. You get DDs, CLs, CAs. Maybe another thing I should have a look at it so I can, I don't know, DD. I would think it was a destroyer, but that's probably wrong. No doubt you guys will know. So it's going to have made an emergency naval move. Now, I suppose I could get the rules out regarding the emergency naval move, but we'll just leave that for now. So that goes to Batavia. You know what? I probably should look at the actual how it does it and how many movement it gets. Right, so it's under Rule 8.22, emergency naval move. It goes on, if during an offensive a player gains control of a hex which contains opposing naval units that were not active, the naval unit must make an emergency naval move. Well, I don't think this is not the case here, but I think just with a start, it's allowing you to do this. I could be wrong and it could be within that rule, but I can't quite see it. So it says, in an emergency naval move, the naval units are placed, not moved, to a friendly port within 10 hexes in hex distance without regard to terrain. Okay, so you're just looking at 10 hexes away. And if more than one friendly port is within range, the owning player chooses the port to which units are moved. So yeah, we could, and then it says opposing air zones of influence have no effect on emergency naval move as well. So that's good. So, and when it comes a time they do come in, it's a right pain to get the zones of influence. Are really quite a big part to this game, I think. So it's just a straightforward 10 hex move, and we could move them somewhere else, but we'll go with what it suggests in the book there. So he's going to go from here to Batavia, and then the next one was, right, okay, the next one's a Sea Asia, US Asia. He's reduced, so he's going to Biak down here. Then the Dutch CL, I'll need to find out what these mean, because it'd be nicer to call it what it was, wouldn't it? He's going to Surabaja. Let me see. Okay, I was trying to find something that told you what all these meant, but I can't see anything. You would think there might have been something here, but maybe it's just one of these things that you should either know, or it doesn't really become. Maybe it's not that relevant. Maybe it's not. They do different things. The big differences is between these are the same. The ones that have range are the carriers, and they've got a third number. This is the attack strength, and this is the defense strength. And then if they had a third number, that would be the range, and that tells you that they're an aircraft carrier of some type. And obviously they can fight from range with their air units that are on the carrier. So I think that's all you need to know. But I will try and find out the exact names for that though, because it's bothering me a little bit. I say that, but the last video I done D-Day at Omaha Beach, it took me a while before I eventually looked up how to describe the units. Okay, so Dutch CL down to there, and then Australian Sea Kent to Gilly, which is down here. So he's moving up to there. And these are all just to get better positions, I think, just better protection, I guess. Well, I say it's protection. I think the Japanese are severely on the attack in the first 2 or 3 turns of this game, and the likelihood is that you're going to lose control of New Guinea and Dutch East Indies and the Philippines. So this is kind of what happens and what did happen, I think. So there's one more, British CA Exeter to Dhaka. So that's one up the top here. So let's just move in. That's Calcutta. So that's Dhaka there. So he's going to move into there. Right. Okay. So that's the setup for the Allied emergency naval move to get us started. Okay, so moving on, so that's just done that. So it says Erasmus goes first, and you consult the axis of determination chart for the opening phase. And then it starts going through the flowcharts here. So here we go. Right, we'll get that one up first then. Okay, so there we go. Kind of scary looking, isn't it? And this is like there's like 4, no, there's 1, 2, 3, and they're double-sided. Yeah, so there's 6 different charts, and that's just for the Japanese. So you've got the same for the Allies as well. So yeah, I mean the first time I did look at it, I thought, oh no, this is even worse than the coin stuff. It's like far too much. I mean, then I started going through it again and grasping it, but it is heavy going. But we'll see how we go on. I enjoyed going through it once I got into the swing of it, though. And that was the thing. Whether I could then, what I thought was go through this example of play and then possibly, if I felt like I could, then carry on the game forward from that. The thing is, with this example of play, it starts off and it shows you the first moves of the Japanese, and then it actually uses the allied bot as well. So you just play with the allied bot and it shows you that. And then it comes to a point, it just finishes, it goes right through turn 2. And then it says, if carry on yourself if you want. And I suppose I could then try and maybe use the Japanese bot and maybe either try and have some moves myself, or even just use the US bot, the allied bot again. And it does mean that it's just bot against bot, but it's just to see if I can get the understanding of how it works. Okay, so we'll zoom in a little bit and then get to the start box. There's a lot of letters there, but you can see there's some descriptions at the side that kind of help you with the letters. So we're in the start box and there's nothing there. There's sometimes some numbers in these boxes. There's one there. And there's some notes down the bottom to look at. So it says start. So we've got the grey arrow just pushes you to that, and then you get the green arrow if the answer's a yes, and then the red arrow if the answer's a no. So the first question is A, and then you look across here. So it says, are Allied HQs in the Philippines, Dutch East Indies, and Malaya out of supply? Okay. Now, I'm going to have to sort of give some explanation of supply. Right, okay. Probably not a very good explanation. Okay, well, I'll try and give a brief explanation. I don't want to go heavily into it though. And we could just say yes they are or no they aren't and move on. But I think I needed to understand it and make sure that they weren't. Like I say, there was a couple of cases where I thought, that's not in supply, or that is in supply, is it not? And the flowchart was telling me the opposite, and I was like, right, I need to check this then. So 6.2 supply and attrition, 6.21 supply lines, general concepts. Both HQs and units must trace supply lines to be in supply. For HQs, a supply line of any length is traced from an ultimate supply source, which is the three map edges for the Allies. I'll just zoom out there, but that map edge, the east and west and south map edge, obviously the north map edge is not. And then the Japanese controlled city hexes, which are there, and they've all got wee red squares in them. I'll not zoom in on that, but these are all the hexes that the Japanese can trace supply to, and it can be of any length to the HQ for that. To the port in which the HQ sits, and an HQ has to be in a port. A supply path that traces from an ultimate supply source to an HQ can use multiple ports to enter, continue across land hexes, and exit by port without overland or number of ports used restrictions. Right, that's starting to get in the heavy stuff. Because when you're trying to trace supply to units, that's not quite the case. But it's more than likely, it's much easier to trace supply to an HQ from the ultimate supply source. And then it goes on to units, but I don't want to talk about units just yet. And then it talks about A, units, and then B, it talks about HQs. So an HQ is in supply if an unblocked supply line of any length can be traced from an appropriate ultimate supply source to the HQ. The types of hex sites that a supply line cannot be traced across, which is shown in 6.21a, which is an unplayable hex side. And then, hang on. The types of hexide that a supply line cannot be traced across apply to ultimate supply sources tracing to an HQ. However, the supply path can use multiple ports to enter, and we've already read that one, yeah. Okay, so they still do have to follow the restrictions, right? And there's some hexes here that are this lighter blue here. This is what is it? An unplayable hexide. So you couldn't trace your supply into it or out of that hex from this hexide. In fact, from that hexide and that hexide as well. Whereas you could trace it in and out from there, for instance. And then we've got a water hexide of an unneutralized enemy zone of influence hex. These are cases where you can't trace the supply. So let's just, briefly look back at this, and I'm going to get myself too deep, I think, if I start trying to explain supply. And I didn't actually consider having to do this, but I suppose if you're going to try and explain what the bot's doing, you're going to have to give some example. But so we're looking about the Southwest Pacific, is it? HQ. And I believe this was it General MacArthur who got caught up there in the Philippines, and when it all kicked off. So is he in supply? Can he trace to one of the map edge hexes? Well, you would think he could. He can come down here and then just write down. But there are these. The main one. I mean, I've just talked about this hex side with the light blue, but he's not bothered by any of that there. I don't think. None of the hex sides have that, so he's not fussed about that. However, the next one's the big one. It says a water hex side of an unneutralized enemy zone of influence hex. Right. Well, what is that then? So I've already said that this unit exerts a zone of influence 2 hexes out, right the way around itself. So, the 6 hexes round about it, and then another 6 round about it. So it stretches out 2 hexes. So the first hex actually covers this. So this HQ is in a enemy zone of influence. Now, is it neutralised or unneutralised? Well, does this have any? And it's air units that do this. It's the ranged units that do it. So the air units are ranged, and also the carriers, like I say, have the range. They do the same thing. Now, there's something about the American long-range bombers that don't quite do it all, but I'm not getting into that. So this is in an enemy zone of influence. However, there's an air unit in here as well, an allied air unit. So it's doing the same. It's exerting its zone of influence as well. So they two cancel each other out, and that means that this is a neutralised zone of influence that the Southwest Pacific is in. So it can trace into this hex and then away. I'm saying that. I'm just saying that off the top of my head. I can't remember what's in here. And of course, this is the thing with the Vassal module. You put the zone of influences on, and it just shows you them up. I think it comes up in a pink colour for the Japanese and a blue colour for the Allies, and you can see right away if the HQ's in any trouble of tracing supply. So yeah, here we go. So this hex here has 2 of these carriers. So I've got 2 CVLs. We'll maybe get to that. And then this one's not. It doesn't do the zone of influence, but these 2 also do stretch out. So that then means that although this aircraft's tracing down zone of influence here, this is then tracing out to here, So it doesn't. This means that can't trace down here. So, however, it could go this way. And as long as it's not bumping into another zone of influence going that way, which these are not, It's just the range stuff. And there's not any other aircraft there. So my belief is that it can trace out this way and then get to a map edge hex. I think that's right. Can't see it. Like I say, that I imagine that's where the Vassal module's brilliant, because you just look and you just see it right away, and like say, like there's not a problem there. Whereas with this, there could be an air unit. I try to leave the air units on top, so that, because they're more important to see for that. So these are on top. However, the naval units, being the bigger units, you put them underneath. So you've got to kind of look. That's why I had to look here. But there's not one of the carriers there. There's nothing with a range. And I don't think there's any other air units over there, Japanese, just yet. But that'll change soon. So it looks to me like that the Philippines is in supply. So the question that we're back asking was, are Allied HQs in the Philippines, Dutch East Indies and Malaya out of supply? So, well, that right away tells you that there's a no, because this one's definitely not out of supply. But why don't we just have a quick look at the other two? Well, actually, no, there's only another one, isn't there? No, I'm talking rubbish. Yeah, there's two. Yeah. So we've got the Dutch East Indies one is here. So again, but there's no air round about them. There's not any air units or carrier units round about them. So, and he's actually got an air zone of influence himself in there. So he's fine as well. So he can trace away as well. And then the last one is the SIAC one up the top there, isn't it? Oh no, it doesn't. No, it's not looking at that one, is it? No, it's not looking at that one. It's our Allied HQs in the Philippines, Dutch East Indies and Malaya out of supply. So it's only looking at two of them here. It's not actually looking at that one. Yeah, my bad. Because this is a combination of the Dutch East Indies, Malaya. I think that's what that one, and it's called Malaya, that HQ. So actually, in fact, both of them are in supply at the moment. So let's go back to the question. Okay, so the answer to question A is no. So they're not in supply. They're not out of supply, sorry. Yeah. So then comes to C plus D. And the plus means that both these conditions have got to be yes to get a result, you know. So C says, does Japan have 3 or more cards? Well, yes they do. They're starting with, yeah, they start with 7 cards. So they've got 7 cards, and I've not randomly dealt with these cards. I'm following the example I play, so it's selected. I think it talks about some kind of historical start cards that you use, and then some mixture. I'm just pick the cards that you want. So C is right. So if D is right, we need D to be right. Does Japan control less than 13 resource hexes? Well, yeah, and the resource hexes already explained are the ones with the yellow border around the hex, yeah, I mean it only controls 1 just now. That's the only one that it's took, so that's a yes as well. So now we go up the way to F then, and F says, right, F says, is the logistics evaluation value 20 or more? Well, now we need to look into what all that means. And it's not too difficult to work it out, but it takes a bit of time to look at it first. The one thing to take note, I think almost caught me out, I think somebody else I noticed when I was browsing through things got caught out with it. Once this logistics evaluation is set, it lasts for the whole turn, as far as I'm aware. So that will not change. So whatever that number is, if we get asked that question again, it's still the same number that we found from the beginning. That's my belief anyway. Right, sorry I was paused there for a couple of hours, had things to do. Where were we at? Okay, we were down to F, that was right. Is the logistics valuation value 20 or more? Pretty sure that's where we're at. That seems to ring a bell. So let's go and have a look at that. Yeah, I suppose just before we go and have a look at how that works. So this was A, are the Allied HQs in the Philippines, DEI and Malaya out of supply? No. So we got that conclusion as well, so that's right. And then it went to C plus D. Does Japan have 3 or more cards? Did I get to that bit? Or did I just jump on by there? We were on A. Yeah, and then we went... Right, what was I done wrong there? Hang on. Yeah, no, that's right. That's what happens when you take a break in the middle of things. Yeah, so A was a no, because they're not out of supply, the HQs. And then C plus D is, does Japan have 3 or more cards? Yeah, it's got 7 cards. Does Japan control less than 13 resource hexes? Yeah, only to controls 1, I think. So that's a yes, and then we go up to F, and then F is the logistics value, and it says it there. F is the logistics evaluation value 20 or more. Right, well, we're coming to answer yes here, but maybe I should have. There's a bit of a spoiler, really, isn't it? Because we'd have liked to work that out. So it says to elaborate, let's say that the Japanese are using the historical opening hand options, 17.25F. We have 3 known cards, so we need to draw 4 more cards. And then afterwards, the Japanese hand looks like this. So it's got Colonel Tsuji, card number 3, card number 47, VADM Kondo, and then these cards here. 59, which is Central Force, 34, which is US Army Navy Dispute, 55, War in Europe Major, 19, Weather card, 12, Operation MI. So that's the cards that they've drawn. Like it says, you're set up with 3 cards per 17.25F. Yeah, and just to go into that in a bit more detail, here's 17.25, and it's the special rules that you begin turn 2 with. And it says Japanese cards 1 and 2 have been played and are removed from play. All other cards are eligible for use in this scenario. For game turn 2, the Japanese receives 7 cards and the Allied player receives 5 cards and 2 passes. Now, and that's what I've got set up. B, no nations have surrendered. The Japanese control all hexes originally part of the Japanese Empire. C, the Allies get a free emergency naval move for all naval units prior to play of the first Japanese strategy card play. Well, we've done that. D, the Allied player may choose card 4, Arcadia Conference, as one of the 5 cards received in game turn 2. This is at the option of the Allied player and must be announced to the Japanese player prior to drawing any cards. E, if the Japanese do not receive any military offensive cards in their opening hand, e.g. military events that have a logistic value, they may discard a 3 OC card of their choice or one of lesser value if no 3 OC cards are in the Japanese hand, and replace that card with Japanese card 47 VADM Kondo. And then F, and this is the bit that it's pointing us to, which is it uses an example, which is the historical Japanese opening hand option. If the players agree to play with this option, the Japanese player takes the 3 Japanese cards, Colonel Tsuji, VADM Kondo, and Central Force, and then deals themselves 4 additional cards for their opening hand. Sorry, and I might have just had that off camera. Yes, I'm good at doing that. There's no professional recordings here, by the way. It's all just hashed along. So there we go. Yeah, and then deals himself 4 additional cards on top of the 3 cards. So that's what we end up with. Okay, so there's the 7 cards. Hopefully you can see them okay. There's a bit of glare coming in. It's difficult getting things right with a lighting situation here, but anyway, there's the 7 cards that it's selected. So now we need to find this logistic evaluation value. So what is that? Okay, so it's down the bottom of page 4 here in the CDSS, and this is sequence of play with Erasmus. Well, actually, it's not. Sequence of play is up here and tells you priorities, using charts. These are things it can do. This is something that comes up near the end that we'll see an operation. It's sort of one of the ones where you need to think about doing something yourself. But anyway, we're looking at logistics evaluation. So it says certain conditions in the Japanese flowcharts were asked for a logistics evaluation value. It's important to note that once this value is determined using the board state at that point in time, it is set for the rest of the turn. I think I mentioned that earlier. To calculate this, first total up all the operations. It talks 5.1, that's in the main rule book. All the operations values of all non-military on non-military event cards. Then for military event cards, there are several things to consider to determine the value of an individual MI military event card for this calculation. So this is where it can get a bit trickier. So there's 3 bullets here. Given the board state, can the military event card be played for event? For example, it may not even be possible to play the military event card for an event if the required HQ is out of supply. If not, you add in the operations value of the card. So yeah, if you've got a military event and it cannot be played for the event at all, then the logistics value you use is the operations cost value. I think that's right. So, and then it says, bullet 2 is, if the military event card can be played for event, next question, is the card considered restricted? And then to determine this, reference the card text to see whether there are any unit activation restrictions, land, air, naval, but not HQ, or battle hex restrictions. If not, then you add in the highest logistics value on the card. Okay. And then the last bullet is, if the military event card can be played for event and is restricted, check one last thing. Is the highest logistic value on the card -1 less than the operations value of the card? If not, then add the highest logistics value -1 to the total. If yes, then add the operations value of the card to the total. So, sorry, I might have just been off there with that last bit. There you go. So yeah, it's kind of a mouthful, that. So, well, let's look at the cards. Anyway, it gives some description of some cards there, but let's just look and see if we can work out our cards ourselves here. Right, so we'll just look at them in order. So, and I've got the B rules there that's going to tell me what's what. And do I have a dice big enough? Maybe. Hang on. Okay, well, I've got a D20 handy anyway, so. But maybe I'll go over that, I think. I can't quite remember. Anyway, so let's look at Colonel Tsuji. So can this event be played for the event? So it's any HQ it can activate. Logistic value 3 surprise attack. Only Japanese ground units may be activated. Yes, there's not real issues at the moment to say that cannot be used as an event. So yes. Right, and then the next question is, if it can be played for the event, is the card considered restricted? To determine this, reference the card text to see whether any unit activation restrictions, land, air, naval, but not HQ. Well, it is, because it says that only Japanese ground units may be activated. So this is a restricted military event. So then the third bullet is, if the card can be played for event and is restricted, check one last thing. Is the highest logistics value on the card -1 less than the operations value of the card? Well, the highest logistics value is 3, so 3 - 1 is 2. So is that less than the operations value of the card? The operations value is 2 as well. So it's not less than. So if not, then add the highest logistics value minus 1 to the total. So we're adding 2. So this is going to give us a starter for 2 logistics value, okay, on that card. So right, let's move on, look at the next one. And you only do this once a turn, so, you know, yeah. So VADM Condo, Conquest of the Dutch East Indies. So as a playable event, well, you've got this restricts you to South or South Seas HQs only, but there's no issues with that in the moment, so it can be played as the event. Now, is this restricted? Well, no, it's not, is it? There's no other text. It basically just says float plane tactics. Japanese sea naval units add 2 to their attack strengths for the duration of this offensive. Sounds pretty good. It's got a very good logistics value. It looks like a great card. I suppose it's only South or South Seas HQ. Now remember, that's not, because that's a restriction, that's not part of the restrictions that they're looking for. They're just looking for if it's restricted to naval, ground, or the battle hex it's only got one, depending on how many battle hexes or something like that, or where the battle's getting carried out. So that is not restricted. So for the event, yeah, so it can be played as an event, and then if it can be played as an event, no, it's not restricted though. Hang on. Can be played as an event. Next question, is the card considered restricted? If not, yeah, if it's not restricted, we add the highest logistics value in the card, which is 7. So this 2 now becomes a 9. So let's just go up to 9. And then we'll move along again. Central Force. So is it playable? South or South Seas HQ only. That's fine. None of them are out of supply. And then it talks about paratroopers. Prior to movement, place a Japanese control mark on a hex. See, this is not a restriction again. So this is a playable event that's not restricted. So, and its logistics value is 5. So that's us up to 14. And then moving along, that was the last of them. No, I'm telling a lie. I've got them set out the way they were in the thing. The thing is, you're meant to sort the cards out. I don't think we've got to that bit yet anyway, because that was a bit I was a bit confused about. So, alright, well this is different now, isn't it? So, yeah, we go back to that bit. So, first total up all the operations values for all non-military event cards. Okay, I should have done this bit first then, clearly. So, what I probably should have done was had them set out like this. Right. And counted these up first, because you don't look at anything else on these cards apart from this. So that's 2, 5, 7. So we would have started at 7 here, and then this was restricted and it was a 2, wasn't it? So that's 9. And then this was not restricted and a 7, so that's 16. And then this was not restricted as well. So that's us up to 21, and I have indeed run out of space, run out of dice. And then, so the last one is an military event as well. Any HQ, so no problem there. However, it says that the conditions are all battles must be fought on 1 hex islands. So that is a restriction. So, and then if it is an event that can be played, and if it is restricted, you check one last thing. Is the highest logistic value in the card -1 less than the operations? Well, 8 minus 1 is 7. It's not less than that. So you add the 7. So we get 21, we get 28. So that's our total, is logistics value of 28. Okay, good. And when we go back to here to see what the answer to F was, is the logistics value 20 or more? Yes. So it was, and then it says to elaborate, we know the 3 cards, we've added the other cards, And these are the cards. So let's just follow through this. So make sure we have got the right number. We said 28. So it says note, two of the military event cards are restricted. Operation MI and Colonel Suji. And that was correct. Yeah, we got that. So we add up the logistics and OC values, which equals 28. So we were spot on. Now that this number has been determined, it will be used whenever a logistics evaluation value is needed for the rest of the turn. So to continue, the chart resolves to aggressive air superiority. I'll go and have a look at that. Well, basically just where we were. We were on F, we got a yes. So aggressive air superiority strategy. That's easy for you to say, Grant. Right, so, and then what you do is you look at these boxes and find the one that refers to that. And obviously this is aggressive air superiority. So it's got 3 steps. It wants to try and prioritise them in that order. So the first one is neutralise Allied HQs. So then there's another subsection that's in yellow, and I'm not 100% sure how it all breaks down in colours. It does tell you in the book. I'm just not fully up on all that. So anyway, we're looking for neutralise Allied HQs, and there we have it here. So and you'll see there's a wee note there to that one, which is number 7. And well, without panning down, the notes are further down. Number 7 says, execute air naval attacks with enough strength to eliminate enemy AZOI units covering HQs in the objective or the specific HQ with the indicated damage level. If necessary, capture a base to put AZOI over the HQ during post-battle movement. So again, what does all that mean? And it can start like making you think, oh, what am I doing here? So again, these are the priorities you want to do things in. So the first Allied HQ we're trying to neutralise is the Philippines. Now the number afterwards tells you the combat value you need. So it's saying that we need to satisfy damage equal to if we hit a quarter result. So if we get the worst die result rolled, where you can get a quarter of the damage that you've got, that's what we need to get equal to be able to create the neutralisation of the Allied HQ. If we can't gather that much combat damage, then we can't do it. It needs to be able to get the result if we roll a quarter result on the dice. I think that's right. Okay. So now that we've found out that's our first one, now bear in mind, if we can do more, we will then go down to try the Singapore and then ABDA. Well, we won't do the ABDA because ABDA's not, that one's not on the board yet. But anyway, we'll see as we get to that. So we're looking at trying to neutralise the Philippines, the HQ within the Philippines. Okay, so that's our priority just now. And then I'll just go back to the book just to make sure we're okay, yeah. So okay, so I maybe jumped ahead, and I will say one thing. I think some of the ways this example's been set out is a bit, it jumps a bit. There's 2 or 3 bits where it jumps, where, for instance, it'll move units, and then before it's activated everything, and my understanding is, I think you've got to activate everything first, then you move everything, and then the opponent gets a chance to react, and then you conduct combat. Well, there's a couple of steps, I think, that just jump out of line a wee bit here. Unless, of course, again, that could be me getting things wrong. Okay, so yeah, but I've maybe jumped ahead there, because yeah, so it says to continue, the chart resolves to aggressive air superiority. Okay, well, we're on that strategy. And the first objective listed is neutralise Allied HQs. Yeah, got that. And it says note also that this objective has an associated priorities box with a list of targets, but we'll get to that later. And that was the one that I showed you, and I jumped ahead of things there. That's a priorities list it was. So I suppose I should be following what it says here rather than jumping the gun, but we'll get back to that then. So, and then it wants to know what cards you're going to play. So we consult the next chart, card selection. Right, so now you've got to find that part of the chart. Like I say, it's on 3 pages in card selection. Right, okay, so we're on a different flowchart now. So, yeah, so again we start at the beginning, and it does have a number 1 here. Yeah, I think we should do that, because it's got it in the start box. I was getting a bit confused, but you eventually come to that part. Yeah, and in actual fact, the little ones in here, which is what I looked at first and sorted the cards then. But let's again follow what it's got in the example of play. And what it does is it seems to ignore the sort cards there. And what it does is look at A, and A says, have any cards been played this offensive phase? And the answer is no. So no cards have been played. So now we come on to sort cards, and it's got a wee number 1 there. So that's the same thing. So then we go down to look at the sort cards. Yeah, it doesn't have another box for that. It's just the note down the bottom, isn't it? Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. So it says arrange the cards from left to right in this order. So military events, reaction events, resource events, political events. And then this was a bit that was throwing me a bit. It says for the last 2 cards, pick the best events in this order. Tokyo Rose, Tojo, War in Europe, End Japan inter-service rivalry, start US inter-service rivalry, replacements, weather reaction, and then for anything else, choose randomly. I'm still not 100% sure about how that kind of works, so by all means, if somebody wants to leave any comments if I do happen to get this wrong. So, right, so we'll look at the cards. Right, so there's all the cards there. So what we want to do is arrange them with military events first. So there's 4 of them, so they're going to go on this side. And in actual fact, I think it's got a more detailed description. Hang on. Yeah, and just rather than show you that, back on page 5, it talks about card selection and sorting cards. So you sort the cards by event type from left to right in this order. Military, as we've done. And then for military cards, you further sort them by restriction, unrestricted first. So if you remember, what did we have? This is only ground units. And we had 2 that were, and this is the one that fights in 2 hexes, doesn't it? So these were the 2 that are restricted, and these were the 2 that are unrestricted. So, and then to break them down even further, you go highest to lowest operations value. So these are 2 that are 3 operations value, and then to break it to the last point, highest to lowest logistics value. Well, yeah, I'll zoom in a little bit if we're too far away there maybe. This has got a logistics value of 7, this has got a logistics value of 5. So this is going to be the very first card that we consider, I think. I think this is how it is. So then we've got to break these 2 down, which has got them. This has got the 3 OC value, so that becomes better than that. It's also got a higher logistics value as well. And then the next one would be any reaction cards. Well, we do have 1 reaction card, which is a weather card. Is that right? So that would go next. And then you would have any resource cards. Well, we've not got any of them. Then you would have political cards. And again, you would sort them, the War in Europe one, because it's got a 3 OC value over the 2 OC value. So I think that's the way the 7 cards are set. The bit that confuses me is these last 2 cards. Because after that it says, for Japanese non-military cards, pick the best events in this order, first within the card type, and then it goes through these selection of cards. And yeah, I'm not really sure about what all that means. I'm still not 100% sure about that. I suppose, well, if we're looking at, yeah, when called for sort the cards by event type, well, these would be the two that would maybe matter. So, and then you would sort them Tokyo Rose, Tojo. That's not, well, let's just zoom on on they two, because these are the two that are got the same type that we need to kind of sort at the end. So Tokyo Rose, Tojo, War in Europe. So that's the first one that comes, and then end Japan inter-service rivalry, or start US inter-service rivalry, which is what that one is. So War in Europe comes before that. So whether these values were around the other way, would we put them like that? I'm not sure. I've just not found the I don't know, the reasoning behind this as of yet. I mean, whether I get through this example and it might kind of click again and I might understand it better or not, we shall see. But as far as I'm aware, that's how we set these cards out just now. Okay. Right, and I've just realised this video's went on. Yeah, I've got a habit of making the videos far too long, I think, than what they need to be. But anyway, that's what it is. So that's just over an hour. So I think I'll cut this and maybe review it back and see if it's worthy to put out there for anybody to have a look at. If it is, if you make any comments, I might not. If nobody makes a comment, it doesn't matter. It's something I find helpful for myself. This the playthroughs that I've recorded before, I've found I've really got into the game more because I'm recording it, and I feel like I've got to. I don't know, it kind of encourages to put a bit more effort into it and whatever. So I think by doing this, for my own benefit alone, if it's not any good to anybody else, then fair enough. But I might still just crank them out anyway because yeah, it does help me. Okay, I'll leave this for now, and that's just got the cards set out. So I maybe should have stopped just before we got to the card selection, but however. But I'll cut this into a part, and then I'm hopefully going to come back and do a wee bit more here. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. Okay, cheers.